So this one here is more of a general purpose spoon. This would be a good one to use around camp, and you can actually make this most of it or about half of it in this session, and then what you've got tomorrow, when you come through tomorrow, if you want, you can finish it off and then we can start on something else tomorrow as well. So everyone actually chose to do that last session rather than these, but if you want to make one of them, by all means go for it. The good thing about these spoons, they got a longer bowl and they're quite narrow, so you can use them for eating. Because it's flat on the bottom, you can actually use it for cooking and scraping your bowl with. Flat on the side, you can use it for spreading as well, and because it's a tough wood and relatively sharp on the end, you can even use it for chopping veggies and things like that. You can even actually make a wooden knife, but it kind of seems pointless because you'll have a knife anyway. So how to start off? We're all starting off with one of these. The wood we're using today is the stuff called black she oak. It's a type of casuarina. Grows all up and down the east coast, and it's a really good wood to carve when it's green. It's I won't say soft. I don't think there is such a tree in Australia that is actually soft, but it's very carvable, and when it dries it goes really, really hard. So what you're going to do is you actually place it across the middle. If you look on your pieces of wood, you'll see there's a dot roughly in the middle. Okay, that's the pith. That pith there is a softer material. Dave was talking about it earlier on in terms of burning. It also causes a bit of trouble when green wood as well, because it's a softer material, so it dries out a lot faster, and that causes a weakness in the bond of the fibres, and that's when you see like a dry bit of firewood, you'll see a star-shaped crack coming from the middle, and that's what's happened there. So we want to get rid of that pith. So the first thing we'll do is going to split it right through the middle of that pith there. So just putting it there. I've only got one of these, so feel free to use any bit of wood lying around, or just wait for somebody to do this. It's very quick. Give it a tap. Stand off to the side. Don't stand right in front of it when you're whacking it, otherwise that could fly through straight into your leg. Okay, so we don't want that. So off to the side and then bash it through. Okay, and you can see there in the middle, can't see it so much with this one because it's got a nice bit of colour running through it, but you can see a thin line running through there. That's the pith. And you go to using the axe up here. You're chopping with the axe now, not splitting. So you're holding the axe up here, close to the head, and you're holding this at a slight angle. Again, keeping the arc just nice and free to roam around here. And you start at the bottom, and you go halfway up. And then when you're halfway up, you actually go back down again. And those cuts that I've just made, they're little stop cuts, little depth cuts. And that determines the depth of the cut that I want. So it means I don't get an up and down kind of thing like that, and I get a relatively smooth finish. You're not looking for super smooth, that's what a knife is for later on. Now I've done that half, then I flip it over and do the other half. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a bit thinner, and that allows me, once this is thinner, I can actually start shaping it a bit easier that way. If I start shaping it when it's too thick, it makes it a bit harder for me. Now, looking on the side there, I don't know if you can see, but it's actually deeper just there. That's the thickest part of the spoon, just on the side profile. Where my finger is on top, we need to carve either side of that. We need to taper down to the end of the bowl and taper down to the underside of the handle. So that's what I'm doing here. So I need to choose how big my handle is going to be. We're not drawing anything on, we're going fully, just freestyle. I think if you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to be bothered with drawing on special little facets and little design features. You just want it to be a spoon. So so it's making it a bit thinner, keeping to that profile. See, I've got a slightly wider end here. I'm going to make that my bowl end, just like that. So this is the underside of the bowl. Right, that's the underside of my bowl. And I want to do the same kind of thing on the underside of the handle. If you go down and it doesn't want to go all the way through, you can actually pick the whole thing up and tap it down. Quite a quick and easy way to remove it. Okay, so now that is starting, you can start to see that side profile taking shape. And these bits are thinner, which makes it easier for me to take off the sides. Be careful here because the axe is a bit close to your fingers. And you can actually go in, just bite in like that and pick the whole thing up and tap it down. Now don't go too thin with the handle at this stage, because remember we've got to carve it with a knife after this. You can do the whole thing with an axe actually, but you better do knife work since it's a more of an event. So. Now see here I've got a bit of a knot. Now probably most of you will get knots today, and they're a really good education in grain. They're a curse and a blessing at the same time. They look really nice, but you've got to work for it. This one's being quite well behaved, but the secret with working with knots is to just take thin slices off the top and see how you go, because they all behave a little bit differently. Right, now that, you can use that in a pot, you can stir with that. We're going to go further than that obviously, but I'm going to stop there myself and let you guys get on with this, taking it up to this stage. Once you're up to that stage, you're pretty much ready for knife work, and then I'll stop you again and we'll do some knife work. I'll do a bit of a demo with knife stuff. So. Now, the really good thing about these kind of workshops where you get a few people doing the same kind of thing is you'll get to see these little nuances, these little differences in how people do stuff. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just everyone has their own unique way to do it. So I'm going to show you versions of what you probably saw this morning, very similar, and a couple of, a new cut as well you probably won't have seen. So the first one is, I don't know if you remember, Gordon was doing this kind of cut coming down here. Yeah, that's a really good cut for doing handles, particularly with longer spoons, like cooking spoons, but you can still do it with these shorter ones like this. Now that will work, and that's a totally fine cut. But if you want a bit more power behind that cut, instead of doing it with a bent arm, because when you do it with a bent arm, you're using this muscle in here, okay, which is a fairly powerful muscle. But if you do it with a straight arm, keep both arms straight, lock them around to your dominant side. I'm a lefty, so I'm around to my left side, and instead of bending my arm, I'm actually going to lean forward, and I'm using instead of using that muscle, I'm using my entire back muscle and upper body strength to push through my straight arm, to push down like that, and you'll get a lot more power through that cut. Sometimes a little bit too much power. If you've got a knot on the side of your handle, beware, because it can tear the whole thing out. And you're pushing down there, keeping that arm straight. It's really easy to go back into the bent arm, and it's fine if you do, but have a practice with the straight one. It feels a bit awkward at first, but it really does remove wood really well. Same thing applies with working on the highs, these ridges. They're there to make your life a bit easier. Now another version I do of that cut, and again you were just seeing Dave do this cut this morning, He did the one where he had on his knee, just there, like that, pulling. With these knives, I wouldn't recommend that, because there is not always that apparent which side the sharp side's on. If you're picking it up quickly going into a cut like this, and if you put that sharp side towards your knee and pull, and you catch a knot or something like that, you're going to know about it, because you'll cut this tendon here. And you won't be walking home. So instead of that, I actually put it, and Dave was doing his down there, which again is fine. I always put mine on the top of my leg, that fleshy bit just here. And the good thing about that is you actually, again, you get to lock it in. You're using that straight arm, you push in with your shoulder, because this cut works good when the knife is just anchored in place. And that way it's in a nice solid spot, and you go underneath and you pull. And it's probably my favourite cut to do, this one. You can do it, you start on the thick part of the blade, and see how I'm moving up the blade there, I don't know if you can see. That little part there, when you move up to there, you're using the length of the blade, you're slicing, you're not just moving it down like that, and there's a much more efficient way to cut. And if you want to do delicate cuts like that you can, or if you want to do a more powerful cut, you just put more power on the up and just take out these big bits like that. Two really good cuts for a handle. So once you've done the handle, then I move on to these bits, the shoulders. Now you can do that two different cuts. One you saw me demonstrating this morning, and that's coming in here, you're pulling it into your chest like this. You've got it sandwiched between your index finger and your thumb, and you've got three fingers just waggling around here waiting for something to do. Your other hand comes in, your elbow comes in close to your body, and it comes up underneath the spoon like this. Okay, and then these three fingers, they actually wrap quite nicely into the grooves of your knuckles, just like that there. And you just push with those fingers and you twist with this hand. And it's a really good cut at doing a little kind of like concave surface like that. Like that. And even though I'm cutting really close to my body, I know it's still safe because I'm just doing that. This inner part of my arm is the break here. I'm just doing that. Okay, so even though it's close to some really vital things I need to live, I'm not going to get close to my body doing it like this. Things to avoid with this one, I did mention this morning, was that elbow. So if you're in it, don't try wrestling it like that, because yeah, that's a bad injury you do not want. So elbow always in, working on the ridges. When it comes to doing the other side, flip it 180 degrees and do the same thing. Okay, so you can do that. The other cut you can do, which is the Libre Cup, which is this one here. Now it looks really simple, but there's a lot going on in this cut. But it's probably the most versatile of all the cuts you can learn. Now this morning you would have seen, I think it was Dave showing the one where you actually just get your thumb behind and push like that, and that again is a very good cut. Try instead of that, try moving your thumb from behind where the cut is to in the middle of your two hands. So you've got your knife hand, your thumb in the middle, and then you've got your spoon hand just there. And keeping that thumb just on the back of the collar, around about there, and then you keep your thumb really stiff and you push it into the wood. And here's the thing that you've really got to get right, because even though it's a forward moving cut, you see the blade going that way, what you're actually doing is you're pulling the handle towards yourself, because this thumb is the lever, the fulcrum. So you see I'm pulling it there, pull towards myself, and it levers it off that way. It's a really safe cut. You can do really nice, you can do everything from these concave surfaces here to, if you move your thumb right down to the tip of the blade, and you can turn your knife into a plane, just coming at a very shallow angle. The only thing I'd add on top of that would be, I mentioned it this morning, was the going with the grain. This is where it becomes really important to always cut from a high point down to a low point. So if I'm doing this bit here, I go down the hill. If I try going up the hill, it's just going to bite in there, okay? And on a spoon, not always apparent where that is, you know, so this bit here is a notorious one. So if I'm going down the bowl there, that's downhill. And if I'm cutting down towards the corner, that's downhill. If I go this bit here, it's still, a lot of people still think that's downhill, but it's not, that's going uphill. So you can actually just tear out great big swathes of wood that way, you know, so just be wary of that. Get that feedback going into your knife, going, well, if it's catching, that probably means I need to go the other way or use a different cut. Okay, so that's the basics of knife work. That's enough to get a spoon done. There are more cuts, there's heaps more cuts, but that's all I use most of the time. So, there you go. I'll never cut towards your fingers. Sorry, I did say that one. It's alright to cut towards your heart, but never your fingers. Okay?
Much more important, isn't it?
Yes. How to turn this into a spoon. Then you're going to use a hook knife, which come in a few different shapes and sizes. These are both Morakniv ones. These are the ones I'm going to give you all today to use. They're actually double-sided. Okay, so you've got that side and that side. They're sharp on both sides. So usually though they do come in a single-sided one, which to be honest I would actually recommend. But these are quite good if you've just got half an hour to hollow something out. So I'm going to show you two techniques on how to do it. So the first one I'll show you will be the quick one, using these double-sided. And you actually do it on your chopping block. And it's easier if you're sitting down at the time. But so you're basically just putting it off there. So your hands, this way, sorry. So your hand has axis down here. And you're just holding your knife like that. Again, remembering there's a sharp edge on both sides. And you just go in and you push it in. It's a fairly crude way of doing it, to be honest, but it gets the job done. It does do it. So you may want to do it this way, which allows you to hollow it out, but leaving a slightly rough finish. And always when you're doing this, make sure you're supported underneath here. Don't do it like that. If I did that down there, chop the end of that whole side will split off. Yeah. So always supported there. Keeping your hand far enough away. And the way you want to do it is that you're not carving in any direction to a corner. If you carve towards a corner, it's going to go uphill and it will tear it out. So if you came on a full day workshop, I'd go into more of the mechanics of bowl. But a quick bowl, if you literally just go down, 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 you'll get there. Okay? So just go in a straight line down and never towards a corner going that way. Alright? You can go away from a corner and into a center if you want to carve it that way, that's fine, but not the opposite. So say you've hollowed that out quite crudely with this, you can then actually go back, you can use the same tool, and then you go back and use that technique that I was showing you guys this morning. Alright, and that's where you go, you're holding it in your hand like this, you've got your thumb just on the underside, and you're pulling towards yourself. Now the secret of this one here, if you want to make a quick spoon, is just, as I said, let something else like this do the work for you beforehand in a crude way, and then use it just in long motions like this to just tidy it up and add a little bit more shape to it. Now you see my thumb is there. Again, I know I did talk about this morning again, but I'll say it again. Every cut you do, that thumb needs to be there. It's squeezing that knife in, it's giving you more power, it's making it a safe tool to use. Take that off, it's a lethal tool to use. Particularly something like this which has got a sharp corner on it. If you catch that corner here, well, you know what will happen. So we'll have to be getting Dave up here with his tourniquets, so we don't want any of that. So yeah, just coming through like that. The shape of the tool of the spoon knife actually you got to look at the shape of the spoon that you want, the spoon bowl. So this is quite a flat kind of curve on this one. So you go through like this. Now when you're doing this technique with these double-sided ones, you've got to watch this bit. See your fingers wrapping around just there. If that creeps forward a bit too much, you're putting force on something, on a sharp thing going into your finger. Alright, there is, I don't know if you can see it from there is a flat bit of blade just there, which isn't sharp at all. So it's got a little bit of a leeway there. I also do have some masking tape here. If you're at all nervous about that, I can give you some masking tape and you can always put that over the sharp edge that you're not using. It's totally fine. But yeah, they're good tools, but they just need that, always keep in mind that they're double-sided.